everybody for joining us for this month's CTSI Translational Science Seminar. And I am absolutely delighted for this month to feature our amazing T programs and T teams. So first we have Dr. Gail Thomas, who's professor of medicine, and Gail has been our co-director of the TL1 Training program for many moons now and does a fabulous job with that program. So you're going to get to hear from her all about what the program has and is up to and opportunities for graduate students moving forward. And we will also hear from Dr. Ira Ropson, who serves not only as our director of the Translational Science Fellowship Program for the CTSI, which is another aspect of the T program for graduate students, but also as Assistant Dean for Medical Student Research and Associate Professor of Medicine, of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology here at the College of Medicine. So thank you so much, Gail and Ira, for joining us today. And we will wait for questions until the very end, but feel free to use the chat function. And then at the end, when we have time for questions, which I know we will, you can raise your real world hand or your hand icon in the chat too. So thank you very much. Gail and Ira, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Jen. So before we get started, so since I'm just going to cover the TL1 portion, before I share my screen, Karen and Steve, could you just turn your cameras on because I'd like everybody to be able to see you too. Thanks. So Steve Wilson is the co-director of the TL1 program. He's based on the University Park campus. And then Karen Shields is our program manager. So anybody who's interested in the program, you've got somebody you can contact on each campus, and Karen is the go-to for all the nitty-gritty details. So thanks so much. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so this session is really designed as just a really broad overview of our programs. We don't have time to go into all the details, so we're just going to present high-level view and hope that generates questions for later on. So what we'd like to give you a sense of today with this presentation is an overview of our training programs. We realize that there are people who still don't really understand what the training programs offered by the CTSI are. So we really we're really glad that we have this opportunity to actually reach a wider audience than we typically do. Most of our outreach efforts are targeted towards students. And so this is an opportunity maybe to allow others to gain some insight into the CTSI training programs. So what do we offer? We've got translational research training programs that are intended for graduate students and medical students. Who's the ideal participant? We're going to talk about the types of students who we think can benefit from our training programs, and then why should they consider participating. We'll talk about some of the unique benefits and the value that students derive from participating in the programs. So I like to start off with this definition of translation to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're all talking about the same thing. And this was actually a definition that was created by the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences a number of years ago. And as you can see, it's the process of turning observations in the laboratory, clinic, and community into interventions that improve the health of individuals and the public. And this can be anything from diagnostics to therapeutics to medical procedures and behavioral changes. So as you can see, this is a really broad definition, but that's intentional because translational science is a really broad field. The key here are the words I think that I've underlined. And so keep in mind that this is a process. Translation is a process. And it's intended to result in interventions. Many of us, when we think about translation, think about it as a linear process. So you start off with basic science discoveries that end up moving into preclinical studies, maybe translating to humans into clinical studies, clinical trials. If those are successful, actually translating to patients, into practice, and then ultimately into populations. So this looks very nice, very linear, very logical. Well, that's not actually the way that translational research happens. So in reality, the process is nonlinear. It's not unidirectional for the most part. It's not bidirectional for the most part. It's multidirectional. And so I think it's better illustrated by this graphic on the left, where you have all those same elements. You've got your basic research, preclinical research, clinical implementation, and public health, but you can see that these are all interconnected. So information can flow from any one of these stages of translational research to another. And as a result, successful translation requires interdisciplinary teams of scientists, clinicians, other stakeholders, diverse expertise, and diverse perspectives. And so that's a big part of what our training programs are focused on. It's building these diverse teams and helping students at very early stages of their research careers understand what it takes to actually be successful in translational research. So a major focus of all of our training programs is to allow students to acquire knowledge and skills that they can engage in rigorous interdisciplinary team-based research. And the goal is to identify new interventions that will improve clinical practice, individual and public health, and best practices in the community. Jen shared this graphic on the right last week in her CTSI inaugural lecture. This is something new that has been created by NCATS to help people understand what it really means to be a translational scientist. So this is kind of the ideal translational scientist, and we don't expect any one individual to actually have expertise in all of these domains, but it gives you a sense of the different types of foci that translational science needs to think about. And so, of course, we expect them to be rigorous researchers. As I just mentioned, we expect that they will be involved in team research, team-based research. And so they have to understand how to interact with teams, how to lead teams, how to be a participant in a team. They have to be able to work across disciplinary boundaries. So this is a really important component. Being able to understand the information that flows from other disciplines, being able to talk to people who are involved in other disciplines. Process innovators, so this is something identifying barriers, identifying roadblocks to translation and trying to think about how to overcome them to make translation more efficient. Domain experts, all of researchers are expected to be experts in their specific disciplinary domains. Skilled communicators, so this flows from a lot of these areas that I've already talked about. So skilled communication is necessary for participating in teams, for being able to undertake interdisciplinary research. And then systems thinker. So this is one, really thinking about all of the elements that combine in order for translational research to be able to occur. So this is really thinking outside of most of, sorry about that, outside of most of our spheres of our individual silos of our disciplines. Really thinking about how all the elements connect. So our goal in our training programs is to help students understand these features of a translational scientist and help them work towards acquiring skills and knowledge in as many of these spheres as they aspire to. So I want to make sure that people are aware that our training programs are funded by the NIH. So our training program is funded by a TL1 grant, and this is essentially equivalent to T32 training programs funded by the NIH. So anyone who's familiar with the T32 program, we operate fairly, pretty much along the same policies, along the same lines as T32 programs. We have two different types of programs. So we have our year-long TL1 Translational Research Training Program. This is the one that I'll be talking about. And then we have the Summer Translational Science Fellowship Program, or the TSF program. And that's the one that Dr. Ropson will talk about. Our trainees for both of these programs come from the College of Medicine and the University Park campuses. This is, I think, somewhat of a unique feature of our program. I don't know of other training programs that are as deliberate in making sure that we've got representation from both campuses. And key to the programs, as I've already mentioned, is development of skills and knowledge to support translation. And this is regardless of either the disciplinary or the disease focus of the students. So that's something else that is unique about our program. We aren't focused on a specific discipline or related disciplines. We're not focused on specific diseases or conditions. So the information that our students, the knowledge that they acquire, they should be able to apply regardless of what their specific research focus is. So shifting just to the TL1 program now, who do we think is the ideal TL1 trainee? So we actually accept students who are in PhD programs. We accept medical students who take a year out to focus solely on research. We accept MD PhD students who are beginning their PhD training. And we accept MD MPH students who are in the MD MPH phase of their training. The key is that all of these students have to have research interests that are related to health in one way or another. Ideally, we would like them to be early or midway through their academic program, because we really want this training to impact their research as graduate students or medical students, so that it becomes part of their nature to think translationally. And so as they move forward with the rest of their career, they carry this along with them. We want students who want to understand the translational ecosystem. And we want students who want to acquire those skills that are really going to enhance the translational potential of their own research and expand their career opportunities. And so on the right, this is just a graphic showing you the affiliations of our PhD students. This is not all of the students we've had in the program. This is just going back to 2016, but it gives you a good sense of how many different graduate programs our trainees have come from. This is not unusual. That's been this way from the very beginning. And so you can see we've got everything from biomedical students to neuroscientists, nutritional science. We've got biobehavioral sciences, social sciences, communication arts and science, bioengineering. It really encompasses many, many, many different disciplines. To give you a sense of the kinds of students, I just wanted to introduce our current scholar cohort. So these are our 2022-2023 scholars. They began in August of this year. So we have Arthi Bhatt, who is a student in PhD student in human development and family studies and demography. And she's interested in housing insecurity and how it affects biological health in midlife and aging adults. There's Janhavi Damani. She is a PhD student in the Integrative and Biomedical Physiology program. And she's interested in effects of prune consumption on oxidative stress biomarkers and bone outcomes in postmenopausal women. Sarah Mills Huffnagel is a dual title PhD student in the neuroscience program and clinical and translational sciences program. And she's interested in how maternal GLP-1 receptor agonist treatment affects glial reactivity, neuroinflammation, and cognitive function in neonatal rats exposed to opioids in utero. There's Rachel Bishop, who is a PhD student in communication arts and sciences, and Rachel's interested in how stress affects the biopsychosocial well-being of sexual and gender minority people. And Zachary DiMattia is a PhD student in nutritional sciences, and he has an interest in the effects of probiotic consumption on inflammation, intestinal permeability, and gut microbial composition in older obese adults at risk of cardiovascular disease. And then finally, we've got Mackenzie Nolt. Mackenzie is a dual title PhD student in neuroscience and clinical and translational sciences. And her interests are the impact of a specific genotype on neurotrauma and recovery from traumatic brain injury. So again, you get a sense of the diversity of our trainees. They come from many different graduate programs, and their research interests are quite variable. We like this mix. We think that this is something special that our program offers that others don't. So why participate in the TL1 program? Again, this is an NIH-funded program, so there is a degree of selectivity. We have competitive applications. We have a limited number of training slots. And so if you are selected for the program, it's something that looks great on your CV. Does provide stipend, tuition, travel, and childcare support for the training period. We have this unique focus on translational research skills and acquiring the knowledge to address health-related questions. So our focus is translation, which again, doesn't appear in any of the other T32 programs that I'm aware of. We offer advanced training in a multidisciplinary cohort of students. You've just seen that. And they're involved in everything from biomedical, social, behavioral, and healthcare research. And then access to all of our CTSI expertise, tools, and consultations. And so I just want to take a moment here and talk about just one of the features of the program that I think kind of highlights those aspects of the training program that I just talked about. So we require our TL1 trainees to attend our weekly CTS colloquium, our Clinical and Translational Sciences colloquium, CTS 590. This colloquium is co-directed by Jim Pwelzik on the University Park campus and myself on the College of Medicine campus. And our goal here is really to introduce relevant translational science concepts and topics to the students. And so we offer them resources, we offer them literature sources, access to experts to help them to learn about these different concepts. And then I think the key thing about our colloquium is we then turn this around and we say, okay, you've learned about these translational science concepts. Now let's apply them to your own research. So we really want the students to see how these different concepts actually are relevant for the research that they're currently engaged in. And so just as an example, these are some of the topics that we've touched on over the different course of the different semesters. So, we're talking about good clinical practice, regulatory science, clinical data using Trinetics, entrepreneurship, first in human studies, clinical trials, community engaged research, team science, and biomarkers. And just this is our focus this semester on biomarkers. So we've had the students understand what a biomarker is. We've had them understand how important it is to develop a context of use for biomarkers. We've had a number of our faculty come in to talk to them about how they use biomarkers in their own research. And then because of the nature of the cohort that we have in our colloquium this year, they're very interested in community engaged research. So we've challenged them specifically to identify biomarkers that are relevant, that they think are relevant for their own research, and to apply them to a community engaged project. So to actually develop a plan for how they would implement those biomarkers within a community. And so just to give you a sense of how the trainees feel about the program, I've included a number of different quotes here, and I have to say it was hard for me to limit myself because we just recently polled our trainees and we got a lot of fantastic quotes from them. But these speak to, I think, the goals that we have for the training program. So, had a significant impact on my research, transitioning to clinical implications directly to clinical populations, exposure to important concepts for clinical trials, which I now conduct. Prior to joining the TL1 program, was unfamiliar with the bench to bedside approach. And this allowed me to think of my research from a different perspective, how this might eventually be used to improve a patient's quality of life, and the experiments that I'm performing are applicable to human disease. The TL1 cohort approaches translational science from many different backgrounds. We're able to get each other's perspectives on our work and incorporate feedback we may not have considered if we were working with folks only within our discipline. Working within a diverse group has allowed me to think differently about my research and become a better scientist. So these are the outcomes that we want, right? We want this program to be impacting the research that the students are doing. We want it to be impacting their understanding of translational science and translational research. And we want them to understand how that diversity, that interdisciplinary component of translation is so important. So another feature that we think is important for an outcome in participating in the program is that our trainees earn an academic credential in clinical and translational science. And hopefully they are expanding their career opportunities because of this. So I don't have time to go into detail, but we do require that our trainees choose a training track. And so this can be the dual title PhD in clinical and translational sciences for those who really want an in-depth immersive experience. It can be the certificate in translational science for those who are interested, for those PhD students who are interested, but don't want to commit to the dual title PhD or can't because they aren't in an affiliated program. And then for our medical students, it can be the master's in clinical research or the master's in public health. And so you can see here, the curriculum it's similar across all of these programs. So we touch on similar areas of focus. So emphasis on analytics and methodology. So they are exposed to statistics, epidemiology, health study design and analysis, the regulatory environment and ethics. And then some of the programs, there's exposure to bioinformatics, scientific communication for most of them. And then again, for the dual title PhD and for the master's in clinical research, there is a thesis or dissertation. And we also have the opportunity for students to engage in an internship or a practicum in our dual title PhD program or the MPH program. One of the things that we often hear as a concern about participation in the program is, well, it's going to take the students too much extra time to actually complete these requirements. And so what I'm showing you at the bottom of the screen here are the outcomes of our TL1 program graduates from 2016 to 2022. This is not including the current cohort that's in training. But you can see that we've had 20 students in the dual title PhD program. 13 have completed those requirements to date. We've got 13 completions of the certificate, 1 completion of the master's in clinical research, and 1 completion of the MPH program. So it's a pretty good track record, I would say. And this 13 number is because we've got students who were in the TL1 program, who graduated the TL1 program, but are still at Penn State completing their degree requirements. We anticipate that most, if not all of them, will complete the dual title requirements. So it definitely is doable. One thing I want to point out for those who are interested, you do not have to be a TL1 trainee to be in the dual title PhD program or to enroll in the certificate program. You can do those outside of the TL1 program, and we're happy to talk more about that. So career paths of TL1 program graduates. We've gone back and we've looked at where our program graduates end up once they leave Penn State, and 70% of them have remained in research positions. So these range from postdocs to faculty to people engaged in academic research, clinical research and pharma research, and then also scientific writing. We've got 30% who are in non-research positions. So we think that this is actually a pretty good outcome for a program that's focused on graduate and medical students, because graduate students, as you know, will go in many different directions, but it looks like a lot of them are choosing to stay within a research environment, which is an outcome that we want. So again, a few more quotes from our trainees. Experience provided me with the knowledge and foundation to reach out and collaborate with various clinical departments that will make my graduate research more impactful by incorporating patient-derived samples into my data into my studies. Gained an appreciation for networking and collaboration. The ability to bring together expertise from multiple disciplines is critical in translational science. The TL1 program is what made me an appealing candidate for my postdoctoral research fellowship in a clinical research lab. As my graduate research was primarily basic bench science, TL1 program helped to show that my primary interest was in how basic science translated to bedside clinical care. And then finally, participating in the TL1 program confirmed my desire to pursue a career in translational science. My dream job would be working for the NIH with a focus on health equity. So these are fantastic outcomes. These are the things that we really want our trainees to aspire to, and we're really pleased to see them connecting in this way, really embracing this idea that translational science, translational research is important. Finally, why participate in the TL1 program? So there is an opportunity to network with TL1 trainees, not just within our own institutions. You've already heard from some of the quotes that the trainees are connecting with others within our own Penn State community. But there's also the opportunity to connect with trainees at other CTSA hubs. This is one of the advantages of the TL1 program, because we are not alone. There are TL1 programs that are spread out across the country at different CTSA hubs. And there's actually a really nice series of events that are available to our trainees to connect them with other trainees at other hubs. So forums for our trainees to meet others include attendance at the annual translational science meeting. So this is typically in April, often in Washington, DC, and offers the opportunity for trainees to present their research. This meeting is very unique in that approximately 50% of the attendees are early stage researchers. So that's TL1 trainees, which are pre-doc and postdoc at some other institutions, and early career stage investigators. So the programming is really directed towards these early stage researchers. So there's a lot of opportunities for trainees to engage in sessions that are really relevant to them, not just listening to others talk about their own research, but things that will help with their own career development. There's the William Schnaper TL1 Visiting Scientist Program. This is actually a fairly new program. It just started last year. And it offers 3 different programs. There's a mini symposium. Oh, before I move on, actually, I wanted to say 3 of our current cohort, Arthi, Rachel, and Zach have already submitted abstracts to the translational science meeting this year and will be attending. So we're really happy about that. We've had many other trainees who have presented at the meetings prior to this year as well. So back to the Visiting Scientist Program. So there is a mini symposium where trainees are selected to give short original research presentations. We had one of our trainees from last year's cohort, Stephanie Barringer, who presented in this forum. And next Tuesday, we will have 2 more of our trainees who are presenting. So that's Arthi and Rachel. So if you have not received the link to register for that mini symposium, we are happy to share that with you. There's also a debate forum. So this is where teams of trainees engage in a moderated debate. And this was just last week or the week before. This occurred, and one of our trainees from the prior cohort, Pridra Rao, participated and actually was on the winning team. So we were glad to see that. And then there's the grand rounds. And this is where an individual trainee actually visits a host institution. This is really designed for more senior trainees who are getting ready to interview for either postdoctoral positions or positions outside of their current either pre-doc or postdoc program. Then there's the CTSA fall and spring meetings. These often have forums where they might invite trainees to present. And we had one of our trainees, it was Friedra again, who presented just at the spring meeting this past year. And this is also fairly new as well. There is a trainee listserv that we have trainee representatives who sit on the TL1 Program Directors Executive Council, and they've just started a listserv so that they can communicate directly with trainees in all of our TL1 programs across the CTSA network. So I'm going to finish with a final set of quotes. We asked the TL1 trainees what advice they might have for students who would be interested in applying for the program. And this is what they say. So program will allow you to have a broader insight into the research that you're currently doing. Do not hesitate to apply for this program. Apply as early as you can and don't give up until you get in. Program is a wonderful tool to advance yourself as a scientist in your future career. Excellent program that adds meaningfully to depth and breadth of types of research one is capable of conducting. Apply. This program is hard work, but incredibly beneficial in the long term. So I think these are great quotes because they show that the students are taking on extra work. They know they're taking on extra work, but they feel that it's really worth it. So they feel that they're really benefiting from the program. And with that, I'm going to end. We are going to be accepting applications soon for our 2023-2024 cohort. You can find all the information at our CTSI website. The applications won't open until January 2nd, but then they will remain open until the end of February. We will announce our new cohort in April, and they will begin their training in August. And again, here are the contact information for me, for Steve, and for Karen, should you want to get in touch with us. Thanks so much for your attention, and happy to take questions when we're all finished.
I think you're on mute still.
Hi, I'm Ira Ropson. I am one of the directors of the Summer Translational Science Fellowship Program. The other is Kara Exton, and I've included a brief description of each of us, just so that if you haven't met us, you know who we are. Kara is an infectious disease epidemiologist and assistant professor in the College of Nursing at Penn State, and she's been looking at structural, social, and behavioral determinants of infectious disease transmission. My training is as a protein chemist. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, but my main role these days is as the assistant dean for medical student research. The medical student research program here has been very successful, and we had over 300 publications from students who were graduated with their MD degrees in 2021, just as an example for publications in PubMed. So what is the Translational Science Fellowship Program? Well, what do you need? You need to have a research mentor and a defined research project. You need to be available to attend 10 full-day learning sessions in June and July. We have 2 sessions each week over 5 weeks. We have a morning session and an afternoon session. We've been running them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the last 3 weeks in June. Take a week off for the 4th of July, and then 2 weeks in July. You have to be able to travel to both the campuses because this is a cross-campus kind of program, and we do sessions at both campuses. Admittedly, the last few years, most sessions have been by Zoom, but we would like to do it more in person because it seems that those sessions are more effective when we do. I do want to say that this is a benefit to the people who do this. They get a 3-month NIH stipend and training-related expenses that they, of course, have to justify. And frankly, it's really a unique opportunity for PhD and MD students to train together and work as teams. They acquire and apply translational research skills to real-world problems and questions. And again, they have lots of access to the CTSI expertise, and they do have opportunities to practice their communication skills by talks, posters, networking, all the kinds of things that help them develop skills as translational scientists. Okay, be that way. So, who participates? Well, we've had the program now for 6 years, and we've had a total of 80 students participate, 39 of which were MD students, 31 of which were PhD students. They're strikingly biased towards females, which I actually think is a fine idea, but we do have more, frankly, applicants for both the MD and PhD programs who are female than male, and getting them participating more in translational research is a really good idea. The students come from a variety of colleges. Given the number of medical students, 39, admittedly, most of them are associated with the College of Medicine. We've had 3 PhD students from the College of Medicine in the program. And the rest are scattered throughout a number of colleges at the UP campus. When it comes to what do they do, similar to what the TL1 program, we have a lot of different department affiliations. For PhD students, things like psychology, human development, health policy and administration. For the MD students, things like ophthalmology, orthopedics, psychiatry. So in other words, it is a broad variety of students who are doing their research in a variety of departments, and they can listen to and talk to each other about how their other people's research and other people's background can work with them on their research. I'm not going to go through this list. I just wanted to point out that we do have a variety of projects, and even within departments, they can get interesting. For example, Angel Baraz worked on impact of race and ethnicity on patient-reported smell outcomes following nasal surgery. It turns out that surgical practices actually seem to differentiate in terms of outcomes for patients based on their race, and he's been studying that phenomena. We've in the PhD departments, for example, Walter Dyer was working on subjective craving experiences in people who smoke cigarettes. We've had people in ophthalmology. This was Emma Karakoleva, who actually was looking at a basic science bench project where they were looking at extracellular vesicle-mediated communication in retinal pigment cells, and so on. So you can look at the slide at your leisure in the recording, or I believe they'll be online available if you want to see the broad variety of the kinds of topics we have each and every year. So we've got these sessions. What do these sessions usually look like? Well, they'll start with a spark talk. We have an expert in that particular field that will talk to 10 minutes about something that made them really interested in that. We'll then have a short active learning session where they'll break into groups and start talking to each other about, okay, this is an interesting topic. How could it apply to what we're working? The session facilitator again comes back and gives a talk, usually around 15 to 20 minutes. We try to keep them short, where they talk about, okay, here's why we're interested. Here's how we do typical research projects in this area. And then we have small groups of typically 4 students, intermingled graduate students and medical students. And they do some kind of small group exercise where they're expected to use that approach to get into some problem in that particular area. And then at the end of the session, we have the groups come back and report to everyone as a whole as to what they've learned and how they applied it. So what are typical session examples? The first one up there is actually from the CHEER team, the community health team, where they talk about how do you recruit participants for research studies from your community. We have a session on research design. That is, how can you plan your clinical study to get the maximum benefit for the clinical research questions you have. We make them, or we want them to get into Trinetics so that they can look at clinical data and use diagnostic codes to test clinical research hypotheses based on real-world patient information. We also have a session by Steve Hicks on how this little project went to the market, and that is how research actually goes from bench to bedside. He's done a lot of really interesting work looking at mRNAs to do things like child development. And what they actually go through for their exercise in this course is to look at to make a technology disclosure form for a student in that group of 4, and then talk more about what factors may impact the ability to patent this technology. Who else do we need to recruit? What else do we need to know in order to make it actually a commercial device or practice? I would like to play a little movie from our students from the first year of the program that we use for recruitment in successive years.
I think that the medical students gained a lot from the experience. We definitely saw our education from a different perspective and learned about some different problem solving techniques. My name is Bethany Latin and I'm a second year medical student at Penn State College of Medicine.
Students can learn a lot through the TSF program. I think for me personally, I learned a lot of the skills required to be a researcher. My name is Tuan Do. I am a second year medical student at Hershey Penn State College of Medicine. Learning and hearing from all these presenters and seeing what impact they're having in their fields as a result of their knowledge and research has really inspired me to pursue a career in medicine and in academic medicine specifically.
I think the most important thing I learned from this program is that there is such a broad array of clinical and translational science. It's not just bench to bedside. It can be so much more.
Translational research is a broad definition, and if you want to combine your basic science knowledge with possibility of it having an effect on patients or in society, I think this is a fantastic summer program for you to be a part of.
So my last slide, we'll be accepting applications soon for the summer of 2023. And there's the website for applying. For more information, you can talk to the co-directors. That's myself and Dr. Exton. And Karen Shields manages this program as well for the CTSI. And I do want to say that we are going to be looking for a co-director to replace me for the summer of 2024. I'm intending to retire in June of 2024. And we really like to have someone who's on board to at least sit in on some of the sessions this coming summer of 2023 before they become co-director for the following year. And that is what I had for my presentation. I certainly could have included more quotes from the TSF students, but frankly, they were so redundant with the ones that Gail presented for the TL1 students that we really think the program is working. These students learn more about how to work with each other. They become better at communicating, and they become pretty skilled actually at using things like Trinetics to explore research questions in ways that they had never thought of before.
Well, thank you so much, Gail and Ira. Those were excellent presentations and overviews of your program, and it's so fun to hear what the students say. They're our best salespeople for the programs for sure. So let's start. We do have one question in the chat. Do the applicants for these programs need to be U.S. citizens?
Yes, or green card holders, I believe.
So the answer is yes for the TSF program. For the TL1 program, for our year-long program, we actually do have some matching institutional funds that allow us to potentially support non-US citizens. And so we have in the past, in our current cohort, actually, Janhavi Damani is supported by institutional funds. So typically that would allow us to support one extra student on the UP campus and one extra student on the College of Medicine campus.
Thank you. Does that answer the question, Dr. Sturgeon? Excellent. Any other questions from the audience?
I guess I'd like to add a comment, and I'm not sure whether or not this is the best forum for it. If we have a problem with these programs, it's advertising, communicating to both faculty that their students can be in this program, and to students that they should be interested in the program. For the TSF, we probably do pretty well because I have a captive audience at least 3 times in their first year. And these students are all doing this the summer between their first and second year. So they get it several times. And so we typically have a lot more medical student applicants than we have graduate student applicants. And Yes, we send out emails. Yes, we set up meetings. Yes, we talk to anyone who's willing to listen. But I don't think that we actually get enough people to listen. That email is an incredibly ineffective way to carry this information around. We've had more success in recruitment for the TSF program actually from past students talking to current students who are eligible. So how can we make this more effective?
So participants, you didn't know that you would be asked the questions, but I think that's a great one, Ira. And, you know, as you were talking, I was sending some messages because I think we can use snippets of this talk in some creative ways that we haven't quite explored before. Because I think, you know, the talking is much more interesting than the emails for sure. But yes, would love to hear if others have ideas too on communications and sharing the opportunities.
I can offer a small snippet from my world. It's not much, but I know with the one group, we have operations meetings every 3 months, and I'm not sure if other groups have something similar or other departments, but just for this meeting right now, I'm double booked at an SSRI. There's so many meetings, and I just feel like you know, one of the things I want to introduce to our operations meeting for our group is that if faculty on the group can be amplifiers for each other, in that, you know, if something, you know, came up, you know, in the talk that you were on, like, you know, have that on our radar to continue to spread the message of, you know, oh, go talk to this person, or here's the website, or just some piece of information. So I'm trying to share that to my group every 3 months, and ask also the people in my group, hey, I'm sure there was a ROAR meeting I didn't get to, or there was this, or there's, you know, pieces of information that I'm sure are important for a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. If we can kind of help each other in spreading the message and being, you know, amplifiers within our own group. I don't know what that looks like tangibly, but I know that's what we're trying to do.
I really like that idea, because what, at least for the year-long program, what we find is that we have some faculty who are really supporters and encourage their trainees to apply to the program. And maybe we need to reach out to those individuals and ask them, hey, talk to your colleagues, you know, help us spread the word, because they're already, you know, advocates of the program. And so maybe we need to lean on them a little bit more. I hadn't thought of that before, so thanks for that suggestion.
And in these sort of talks, maybe, you know, here's your snippet you can take to tell people about. Like, actively have that that thought process, like seed that into people's heads. You know, we all have, every meeting's at noon. Why is every meeting at noon?
Yeah.
You know, so if you know, if you could take this and talk about it next time, it'd be great.
And I think also, you know, having the mentors viewpoint in terms of, what do they see in terms of how this impacted the student, their trainee? Did it impact their own research? Did it change what was going on in their own lab? I think those could be powerful messages too. We tend to target our message more to the students and what they'll get out of it. But, you know, it would be great to be able to talk to the mentors and say, hey, there's something in this for you too.
Yeah, because honestly, one of the reasons I jumped on this call is I have known about the being a KL2 with translational science, because that's what I do, is translational research. But I'm also like, wait, what are the deadlines? How do I do this? Where do I go? And so that's why I'm here.
I love that idea, Katie. Thanks for bringing it up. And I was even thinking it would be nice if we had a single slide that promoted the program, maybe those last slides that you both showed, and we can combine them into one. And we could share that as part of our bird seminars, as the opening slide for future translational science seminars, you know, share them to departments so they could just add it easily into their meeting agendas. So, you know, a couple of things like that with the little blurb so that we're arming them with the information as Katie described. I think that would be great. Other ideas other than deploying our secret recruiting weapon? Or any other questions for this excellent team?
And sorry, I joined a little bit late. Would it be possible to get the slides emailed out?
Yep, everyone will get the slides and the recording. They should go out probably next week.
The movie's actually too big. We'll need to find a place to put the movie I did for the students who participated in TSF, because it's too big to actually send by email. So we'd have to post it somewhere.
Yeah, we have a brand new, you may not have seen this yet, Ira, but we have a brand new CTSI YouTube channel. So all of the presentations get uploaded there, so they can be big and it doesn't interfere.
Great.
Yes, Jim.
Yeah, thanks everyone for a great presentation. And just to draw together a couple themes, what I put only half jokingly in the chat and also Katie's comments. And just to give some props again to two excellent presentations. The key to making these programs work is to humanize them for the students. In every single case, students speak about how these programs bring together all kinds of boundary spanners, but everybody has a different boundary, and they share those experiences and how they're dealing with them. They form bromances and romances, and they genuinely enjoy interacting with each other. And when we communicate that to potential people coming to the program, doing it directly, Katie said on a key theme here, people who are contemplating that suddenly see that this is not just a brave space, but it really is a safe space for them to go out and explore.
That's a great point, Jim. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, Gail.
I was just going to say, just to return then to that theme of networking and, you know, building their own individual networks. Katie will appreciate this. We now have, well, Jen, you will too. We now have a few examples of trainees who have left Penn State and, you know, have embarked on the next phase of their career, and they're aware that other CTS hubs exist, that they have similar programs. You know, we've got one trainee who's out there and already says, I want to apply to the KL2 program, you know, where I am now. So I think that's another element. They're not just building that community here at Penn State, as I said before, but it's a wider network that they'll be able to draw on for the rest of their career.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Lisa as well. She actually was in the TSF program, went out from the School of Nursing and has now returned to the School of Nursing as faculty.
Any final closing thoughts, Gail or Ira or anybody else?
Well, just thanks to everyone for attending. And again, feel free to contact us at any time. We're more than happy to talk to individuals, to groups, send students our way. We're more than happy to talk with everyone about the programs.
Thanks for everything you all do for the program, and we will be sure to take some of these creative marketing approaches and put them into effect this year, and hopefully have our most robust recruitment year yet. So thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day.